Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fishhead Creations podcast, where I pull out one of my interesting knitting projects every time and talk you through the details. Welcome back! I actually managed, or am managing, will have managed when you're watching this, to record in my planned 2-week interval. I'm so proud of myself. I really am. And I did quite a lot of knitting this time, so I actually have content for this time, for next time, and hopefully by then I have finished another garment. We shall see. I'm ahead of podcasting schedule, and I do have some topics I would like to talk about in the future, so I will try to take notes on that for those episodes where I do not have any new finished objects. But for the time being, I have finished quite a few new items. I have finished, as you maybe can see in the background, ta-da! 2 cushions. One of them is here. Both of them are machine knit and then just seamed together. I'm sorry, I'm distracted. I need to take a picture because Loki is being cute. I have my camera is on a tripod behind the dining table, and then on the dining table is a foldable laptop table, and on top of that is my podcasting light, and Loki just crawled underneath my table, so underneath my little laptop table. And now the cat is coming to investigate as well. You may have some cat ears in the frame again today. We shall see. But let's get back to knitting. This is not a cat podcast, although they beg to differ sometimes. I have actually finished a thing. I have finished a type of garment that I have not yet had in my wardrobe. So, have not yet had in my podcast. You may not be able to see anything because the cat is standing right in front of me. I made a vest. So when I had to order more yarn for the Osterkofte, which I talked about last time, the time before, I'm not sure. Osterkofte, my last all-over Colourwork cardigan, which used the same grey and white as this one, which is Osterkofte, which I talked about last year, and then a bit of red, that one. Where I ran out of yarn again, because I'm cursed, apparently. Well, I had to order more yarn, because you do not just order one ball when you have to pay shipping, right? Right? Or is it only me? You do have to order more, because yarn does not like to travel alone, and shipping has to be worth it. So, what I did order, among other things, because of course I did, was 2 plates of Plötulopi, which is what I used to knit this vest. Plötulopi is, if you do not know, pretty much the same as Letlopi, the typical Icelandic yarn, but it's an unspun yarn, so it's not really yarn, it's just fiber, pencil roving more or less, so it's just the stage it is in manufacturing before it is actually spun. So it's incredibly light because it is unspun. It does break quite easily when you're knitting, but you can just felt it together just very roughly and it will stick again. So I just ordered 2 plates of it in grey and orange. I did not choose black, and it's a light grey, so yay me for choosing colorful colors, because I wanted to try it out, because it is very, very warm and you can knit it at quite a loose gauge, because Icelandic sheep have such a long staple in their wool that it still becomes quite sturdy once it's knitted up. And I just wanted to try out this possibility of knitting a very warm but very light garment. This whole thing, I had a ton left over of my 2 plates. I have not weighed it, but I'd say it's about slightly over 100 grams. It's light as a feather. Really, it just weighs next to nothing. And because I was not sure about my yardage, I could have done a full sleeved garment, no problem at all, because as I said, I had a ton left over. I maybe would have had to switch around my colors and use more of the white or light grey in the sleeves, but I would have had enough to do sleeves. I did not know that. I expected to run out of yarn, kind of. So I decided to go with a vest, which I was interested in trying out before that anyway, and I thought it would be a good way to test out how a vest would fit into my wardrobe if I used just such a very light but warm yarn. So the pattern, the Colourwork pattern, is Gammel Telemark from one of the Kopfterbogen things. I think from the first one, but I'm not sure. First or second, that's the two I have. So another Kopfterbogen Colourwork pattern, but I only took the leaf pattern, so the chart from Gammel Telemark, and then did my completely own thing. It's knit on 5mm needles, and as you can probably see, it's a pretty open fabric. It's very light and very open, but not too see-through, and sturdier than it looks. So I of course knitted bottom up, because of course I did. I started with a seed stitch band, which might be called moss stitch in the UK. I have also read pearl stitch for it. So the stitch that's knit one, purl one for one row, and purl one, knit from purl one, knit one for the next row. I'm sorry, there's very much cat action going on in the background. If I'm distracted, it's because I'm afraid they ran into the tripod. And if the image is shaking suddenly, that's because they did. So yeah, pretty much offset 1 by 1 ribbing. Just because I thought this loose gauge wouldn't really look too good in actual ribbing, and I think seed stitch is a pretty nice option. Then yeah, it's quite heavily waist shaped. I think I decreased 4 or 5 times, and well, it's planned at a 16 stitch gauge. I think it turned out slightly tighter, but we will get to fitting issues in a moment. So yeah, decreasing 4 or 5 times is a significant difference, and then increasing out again. You can see quite how waist shaped it is. Then I bound off a bunch of stitches and then kept decreasing for the armholes. So it's pretty much based on a satin sleeve, but I improvised it. So from some pattern braiding I've been doing recently, I came to the conclusion that about 16% of the sleeve circumference, upper arm circumference stitches need to be set aside for the underarm. So based on my gauge, I figured out how many stitches I would have for the upper arm, and then took 16% of that and put those aside initially. I think it turned out to be 9, but I may be lying, I may be making that up. Yeah. Those 16% of the imaginary sleeve stitches, and then I just continue to decrease. Oh, and of course it's steeked up here, so when I put those 9 stitches aside, I cast on 5 new steek stitches on both sides and knit across those. And then when I came to here, I also put the center, how many ever stitches it was, I don't remember, probably around 20. I cast those off, then cast on steek stitches and continued to decrease along the sides for the neck opening. And then I did staggered bind offs, so I had 12 stitches remaining on either side, and I bound off 3 on each row, so the inside is 4 rows, 8 rows higher than the outside, for a slightly sloped shoulder, as you might be able to see if I stop holding my hand in front of it. Then I cut open the steek. Oh no, first I seamed the shoulders, and because it's such a unstable yarn, I didn't use that for seaming, but I had Holt's Super Soft, which is a very fine, not the sturdiest yarn, but it's more than sturdy enough to seam a seam with it. And I had that in a very close color, so another orange, and I just used that to seam my shoulders, and I don't think it shows at all. It was a pretty close match anyway, and the fuzziness of this Plötulopi hides pretty much everything. I have no idea if you can see anything. I will try to remove the cat from the camera. Excuse me. So, yeah. Where was I? the fuzziness of the Plötulopi pretty much hides any slight color difference, so worked quite well to use Holme Super Soft for the seams. And then I also used it to tack down the steeks on the inside. So here's my neckline steek, here's the other side of it, and then the armholes, of course, are steeked as well. Yeah, that's construction. Pretty easy, I think. Well, I have mentioned before, I have a bust circumference of pretty exactly 1 meter or 100 centimeters, which makes calculations incredibly easy, because for zero-use garments, which I prefer to knit, you just take the gauge for 10 centimeters and multiply it by 10, and you have your total stitch count for the body. Yeah, and if you don't do any sleeves, which makes it more complicated because my upper arm circumference doesn't match my bust circumference going by standard sizes, so yeah, whatever. And it's not such a nice number, but if you're only calculating for the body and you need it for a 100 centimeter bust, it's pretty easy math. Thinking about it, I think I decreased 6 times for the waist, because 4 times would have removed 10 centimeters, so 6 times would have removed 15 centimeters, and that's pretty much exactly the difference between my bust and waist. So I will have decreased 6 times, and increased again, of course. And also I went with a solid colored shoulder, just because it was 12 stitches up here, and the chart is a 10 stitch repeat, so I would just have been able to squeeze another repeat of the leaves in, and I didn't think it would look any good, so I just left it single colored. And yeah, the armhole bands and neck bands are seat stitch again. I think I did 8 rows at the bottom and 6 rows for all these other, or 5 and then the bind off. I think 5 and the bind off. So it's narrower than the bottom band, but it's enough to keep it from rolling. I think it looks quite nice. And I'm still not sure if I like the light grey armhole bands or if I should have gone with the orange. But at this point I had used so much more of the orange that I just wanted to use up some more of the grey. So I had enough left over to do some other kind of color work. Mitts, for example. I really want to try it at a significantly tighter gauge, because I think you can knit it extremely tight and still get a very nice result. And this is as loose as I would go, so I really want to test both extremes. So yeah, let's get to the sizing issues. When I had finished this, the neck hole looked suspiciously small. So I tried to put my head through it, and the bind off just broke. It just exploded. Because apparently my head is too large for what amount of stitches I had picked up here. So, or at least for how tightly I had bound off. So yeah, I put my head out of it again. I picked up the stitches. It was somewhere around here in the front, I think. It looks slightly stretched. I'm pretty sure that's where I ripped it. But yeah, it didn't go anywhere. I just picked it up, attached a new bit of yarn, tacked it down. It's fine. Then I decided, okay, I will just finish it. It looks as if I have knit tighter than planned anyway, so if I have to give this to a child of my friends, I'm happy with that. I just wanted to try out the yarn, and I did get that. So what I did was to go ahead and block it. So when I pulled it out of the sink after soaking, it had relaxed so much in the neckline that I couldn't resist trying it on while it was still wet. And it went over my head easily. And despite the fact that at that point I had tried to measure my gauge and decided apparently I'd come out at 20 stitches per 10 centimeters, which would have meant 20 centimeters of negative ease, it actually fit quite well. So I have no idea what gauge this is actually now. It fit quite well once it was wet, or while it was wet. I have not tried it on since it has dried, because the weather just didn't want me to wear any wool anyway. Yeah, I have no idea if this fits now. I will try it on when the weather allows. But still, for testing out the yarn, I'm pretty happy with it. There are a few stitches somewhere, I won't be able to find them now, where the yarn had just stretched and loosened while I was knitting with it. But I don't think they will be an issue, and if they are, I will just go over with a 10 centimeter piece of the yarn and darn them and duplicate stitch them. It should be fine, so I'm pretty happy with this. I can see myself knitting another garment from this yarn, just because it's so incredibly light as a feather and still very, very warm. I think it's quite a good choice for a vest, because you don't want a very bulky extra layer, but you want the warmth. So I hope to get to wear it at some point. And yeah, I can see myself knitting another vest, actually. They are quite fun and quick. This took 3 days. What else do I want to say about it? I'm not sure. I think that's everything. So yeah, I think I will just try this exact method of how I shaped it, because I do quite like it. Just another yarn, and then see how it goes. Maybe at some point. I'm not sure. What I really like is the color. Can you see those little red flecks in here? There's so much depth of color in this orange, and the grey seems to be a natural light grey, so it's also quite heathered. I really like the colors. And also knitting with the yarn, I was quite afraid, because I tend to be a very tight knitter, at least on the tighter side, and keep a lot of tension on my yarn, so I was afraid that I would just break it by knitting with it. But because I keep my finger quite close to my knitting, it's not a very long distance the yarn has to travel, and that's pretty much covered by the staple length of the fiber, so I could knit with it quite easily, almost the normal way. The orange did break a lot more frequently than the grey. I'm not sure if it's because of the dyeing process or just because that was my main color and I held it differently, but I changed main and contrast color, so I don't think it's that. I don't know. Both broke. The orange broke very much more often, and that's maybe 10 times in the whole garment. So it's not a big deal. Just you put both yarn ends on top of each other and then just rub them as if you were wet splicing them, but you don't need any liquid, you don't need any force, and you just roughly rub them back together and continue knitting. So I really liked it. I'm not sure about the fuss, which is a thing I struggle with Plötulopi as well, but I'm excited to see how this wears, and I'm excited to knit up something else at a very tight gauge, just to try it out. So yeah, that's my Gammel Telemark vest, and that's it for this week. I better get back to knitting so I have something to show you in the next weeks. Although, next time there's something done already, which I'm quite proud of. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Links to my project and everything, and my Instagram, where you can find me as Caledoniana, and my Ravelry group, and me on Ravelry, where I am as Oopsie, and my designs, and just everything, are in the description box down below, as always. I really like to hear from you, to talk to you, to get feedback on my episodes, on my knitting, any suggestions of topics you would like to hear me talk about, just anything. Loki sends his regards, if you have heard it. Maybe. So yeah, just get in touch if you want to. I really appreciated your suggestions for patterns last time, so keep them coming. I have not started a cardigan in my orange yarn because I'm still struggling with the color. I love the color, I'm just struggling with the idea of wearing it. It's just me. If anything is not black or at least dark grey, I will struggle a lot. So yes, the garment I have on my needles at the moment is all over Colourwork and the main color is black. Is anyone surprised? So yeah, I will stop blabbering around and teasing you about upcoming projects and actually get knitting on them. So So yeah, thank you for watching. I will hopefully see you in 2 weeks. Bye!